Bună seara and greetings from Chișinău, the capital of Moldova, on this beautiful Sunday late afternoon, early evening. It's 7 p.m. local time. Let me know if you can hear the audio clearly. I notice now there's actually a fountain behind me, and then over on this side, over there we have a concert going on, but should be good. I was a little bit distracted. I got some pop-up telling me something weird about the comments on YouTube. So in today's live stream, which I'm still having these almost weekly live streams at the moment because I keep changing location. I was in Odesa in Ukraine in the last one. Before then I was in Lviv in Ukraine, in the west of Ukraine. Now that I'm back here in magical Moldova, thought it'd be good to do a live stream, a little bit as public service, I guess, to show you what's going on the Sunday. And maybe see up there where here we got the cathedral in Chișinău. And today I'm going to give you 5 reasons to come to Moldova in 2025 in the summer. Just going to be here to Chișinău, the capital, and the surrounding areas. And then I'm going to react to a little bit of critique from our favorite troll who comes on these live streams, Drifter Dan. He wrote me a lot during the week. So he gave me some things that I think are pertinent to discuss, basically about Conor's Law, as he dubbed it, which is the advantages of learning the local language for improving your lifestyle when you come here, not relying on English. So go a little bit into that. And if you're new to the channel, salut, which is hi in Romanian, which is the official language here in Moldova. My name is Conor Klein, and I help high-level men with living their best lives in this region, the region I dub New Europe. I have a video about that. It should be down below in the description of the video if you want to know a little bit more. But basically, it's the region east of Germany and west of the Moscow Empire, Russia. And I focus, because of the Russo-Ukrainian War, in neighboring Ukraine, where I had the biggest channel, or at least the most reputable about lifestyle there prior to the 2022 invasion. Obviously, and we could discuss it a little bit maybe in the comment section about guys who are coming to Ukraine at the moment, but most of my clients, they look for the alternatives in the region at the moment, which are Poland, 3 Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, here in Moldova, Kazakhstan, Romania, it can be Czechia, it can be some other countries in that region, because I think it offers high-level guys a unique and better experience with better long-term prospects if you're willing to put in the time and come here, not just as a tourist, although you'll probably get a lot out of this live stream if you're also coming as a tourist. And I help my clients primarily with my in-person immersion, the New Europe experience. It was called the Tsar experience, but for obvious reasons, if people understand the origins of the word Tsar and how there's a usurper in the Kremlin, that I have rebranded it. And basically, you'll come here with me if you're around the in-person experience by application only. There's an application form down below if you're interested. And you'll just party like a rock star basically with me for up to a week in a city that we agree on mutually, and obviously meet most of my clients they're nearly always single when they come in in-person immersion, at least in the beginning, and later on they have normally partners from the region and they get married, a long-term girlfriend. As I said in one of my other live streams, we will have our first baby from the New Europe experience. One of my clients is having a child with Belarusian model. They met me back in 2019, and we were out clubbing, and I introduced him to her. I had already chatted to her. He was away from the table. I think he went to the bathroom or something, and I chatted to her and her friend because they were just in front of her table, and then I could see when he came back that she was interested in him, so made that connection, and now they're gonna have a child together. Anyways, that is some of the results of the in-person immersion. And not only will you get my encyclopedic knowledge to be with you there as a mentor, so find all your blind spots that you're going to have with whether it's networking with high-level guys with similar interests, because it's not all just about meeting women, but of course that is no problem in terms of the opportunities here in a country like Moldova, for example, or up in the Baltic states. There's just so many beautiful women, and perhaps they have values that are also a little bit more compatible with what you're looking for if you're frustrated with, say, the more woke elements that you see in the US or UK in the core Anglosphere. So We work on that together. Also, I used to work as a lawyer for close near on a decade, I guess we could say. It was 8 years I was working. So anything to do with visas, residency, maybe getting citizenship ultimately in this region, buying real estate, all that stuff we can dive deep into. And also if you want to improve your social media, it's what I recommend. Definitely Instagram. We'll work on a strategy for that. We can even shoot some of the content, but we'll definitely set up a plan to give you a huge boost, whether it's networking with high level guys or meeting the hotties. Well, it's actually better just to boost your perceived value through Instagram. So we work on that together, and you get all the cultural information and training so that you don't have to spend years, because it will take you years to figure all this stuff on your own. You can do it on your own. Maybe you'll get there eventually. We'll discuss the case of Drifter Dan a little bit later about how long it might take you and how much investment it might take you if you try to do it yourself. But that is the main thing. You won't be wasting years and so many emotions and money trying to figure out by yourself. I've already squandered that time and money myself, and so I stripped it down to a certain extent, so you don't have to. So that's down below. And other things in terms of housekeeping, if you are coming here to Moldova, guys write me and they say, where should I go out? I get these messages on Instagram all the time. It's like, I have a guide, no need to ask me, it's down in the description. And there you have my hospitality guide, all the cafes, restaurants, and shisha lounges, clubs, and let's say cafes as well. I just had a great coffee there at one of my favorite. It's in the guide. It's all in one spot. Just go get that. Also logistic information and my review of what I think are my top 10 vineyards in Moldova, because that is one of the big things here in Moldova is the wine. There's over 250 vineyards I read this morning that offer some sort of tour or wine tasting in this country, even though it's not that big. It is insane as a culture, basically. It's phenomenal. And that's what it was a lot of fun making that guide. I basically put it together over 3 summers here. Summer 22, 23, and 24. And yeah, maybe if I spend enough time here this summer I'll update it, but basically there's more than enough already in it for you. And of course it will direct you in the right places, so you don't, if you're coming on a more limited trip, for sure you will of course save chunks of time. You won't be writing me just randomly looking for a few addresses like a lot of guys seem to do on Instagram. And actually I met a guy from Hull who watches the channel. Yesterday, Hull is in the north of England. He came over to me when I went for my first glass of wine of the evening at a wine bar here. And yeah, he's been here I think for a few weeks already. I'm going to discuss his case as well today, because I think there's a lot you can learn from it. And yeah, he didn't know so many places, so just buying the guide with it, like, what is he going to do? Spend the whole 3 months checking everywhere out? Your Irish boy here has already done it for you. So that is down below. And yeah, if you want to jump on a consulting call, I had a client there the other week who was wondering between starting his 3 months in Warsaw versus Riga, and in the end he switched. He was going to go to Warsaw, now he's going to go to Riga based on my advice after the call. So, you know, you don't have to spend weeks and weeks maybe in the wrong spot. If you jump on a consulting call, we'll dive deep down into what you're really looking for and which is the best fit. Obviously, you can also experience the in-person immersion and you will learn that as well. However, consulting call also down below for my consulting services. I think that's all the housekeeping. So normally with these live streams, if you are new to the format, I give a short presentation. Normally I'm sitting out somewhere here in the country I'm going to talk about. So just show you back up there to the cathedral. It's not that animated behind me, but what I like with this format is you can actually see what's going on behind, what the kind of vibe is for yourself on a Sunday afternoon. Also in Ukraine, when I'm covering it, you don't have to rely on the media tilting you one way or the other. You can see what's actually going on in the background. I think that's also pretty useful for you to make a more informed decision in general if you're coming here or not. So drop your comments and your questions down in the comment section as I go through this short presentation, and at the end I will come to the Q&A part of this live stream. So Moldova, just a quick overview. This is a country of less than 3 million people. It is sandwiched between Ukraine and Romania. The official language is Romanian. It was in a lot, well, was it all? No, it's basically been in the Russian Empire and been part of Romania at one point, and was in the Soviet Union as a constituent republic and then became independent in 1991. So it is now on the path to EU membership. It's not a member of the European Union or Schengen or using the euro yet, although we'll get there. As a result, economically, it is behind the countries that are in the European Union, like Romania, quite a bit, but it has improved a lot in the last 5 years here, I would say. Maybe with COVID, actually, things got a lot better here. Now when I'm thinking, I realized I have to go to my favorite ice cream place after this. This would be the perfect thing to do. And they were open a bit later, so yeah. Also, there's great ice cream just over there. That's also in my guide, by the way. So that is what Moldova is. The capital here, Chișinău, it's pronounced Chișinău. It has a population of about 650,000. The population has been declining since independence, as a lot of people go further west. Or in the past, they come further east. A lot of people have gone to Moscow in the past to look for work. That is a lot less popular today than it was a decade ago. And I've seen that as a big shift. I came here first in 2009 to Chișinău, which is already 16 years ago. And at the time, Russian was definitely the main language used. Now it's not so clear to me. I would say it's slightly more Romanian than Russian, and that has been the trend. And in fact, even some girls who I talked to in my parties who are maybe, let's say, early 20s, late teens, they don't speak so much Russian at all. They really, it's either I'm going to speak to Romanian. I mean, of course, we'll get into their level of English in a minute as well, but yeah, it's definitely on the wane. So the future will be Romanian as the main language here. That seems clear to me, a little bit similar to parts of Ukraine, that now it's pretty clear that Ukraine is going to be the main language. So it is a country, I've mentioned the wine. The wine is phenomenal. Basically, think of Italian, French, Spanish quality, but maybe a third of the price. So we'll get into the price level also in this short presentation in a few minutes. And basically, it's a country that doesn't get much tourism. You probably haven't heard about it very much. When I mention Moldova, a lot of people think that it's dangerous. I don't think so. I think when I first came through in 2009, it was a bit dodgy. I think even up to 5 years ago, it was still a little bit shady. But nowadays, like basically this broader region, it's kind of flipped from 20 years ago. 20 years ago, here it was particularly bad for petty crime. They had the collapse in the 90s after independence in most of this region, after the fall of communism. And as a result, there was a lot of poverty and poor rule of law. And basically there was rampant crime. There was corruption, there was petty crime. Also the murder rate was less than the US, but way higher than Western Europe. And the opposite was in Western Europe. Obviously we had lower crime levels and then here. And just about every metric, I would say corruption, homicide rate or petty crime or something like that, or how it is. Nowadays, it is the opposite. The murder rate is a little bit higher overall in parts of this region, not necessarily Moldova, but every other metric is basically lower. So petty crime and your feeling of security, walk around at night. Like I have my camera and stuff with me quite often, and I've never felt insecure about walking around. I don't know if I would feel so secure in, say, a big Western European capital like, you know, London or Paris or Barcelona. Barcelona is so much petty crime historically. So here, that's first big objection again is, oh, is it dangerous Moldova? In terms of your personal safety, no. As long as you're not doing something crazy or reckless, you should be fine. I don't hear about people getting mugged or anything like that, or being robbed. Would a taxi driver scam you potentially? I guess, maybe. If you're going to pay in cash and just take one outside the airport, I guess that could happen, but in general, I just didn't hear about it. And actually it's a problem in Warsaw as well. Actually, a lot of guys have complained to me that they jump into a taxi, they've had a red-eye flight to Warsaw, and then they just pay in cash, and then in the end they don't understand the currency very well, and yeah, they end up paying like 10-20 times the real price, which has happened quite frequently. But here, maybe they just don't get so many tourists that people haven't thought about even scamming tourists so much. So yeah, the second objection I get is, well, we'll say connected with maybe safety is geopolitical risk, right? So we're right beside Ukraine, and obviously Russia is an aggressive, revanchist imperial state that has attacked Ukraine in 2014, now 2022. They would already have been here and have taken over Moldova, at a minimum put in a puppet government, if not outright annexed it, if the Ukrainians hadn't valiantly defended their borders. So the Russian troops never got here. They were actually not so far away at one point. They were actually in Bosnia, which is Angelo's hometown. the local lads there in the territorial defense, they actually stopped the Russian army, which the furthest they got, and then they had to retreat afterwards. So at the moment, the main geopolitical threat is maybe a Ukrainian collapse, although the chance of that in any sort to medium term time horizon look minimal, or maybe an attempt to coup d'etat. But the Moldovans seem pretty alive to that possibility, so I don't see that happening. There are parliamentary elections in September. Maybe a pro-Russian party could come to power then, although in the polls it doesn't look likely. There is a new party challenging the incumbents, but they are also pro-European Union and not pro-Russian. So I would say that geopolitical risk for now is very low. Of course, that could change, but at the moment I would say it's very low. And I would say it's lower geopolitical risk than being, say, in Poland or the Baltics for now, which is also low at the moment. But that's a short-term low risk. Medium term, it's a bit higher there. Next objection I get is, let's see, was with the safety, infrastructure. I'm doing all the negatives first before I tell you the positives, doing them in reverse than I normally do it. So I would say that infrastructure is improving, but it is considerably behind Western Europe or even Central Europe, if we take Poland, for example. So definitely for spending a long time here, it is, it's a bit limited in terms of infrastructure. Roads and stuff like that outside the capital are pretty bad. Some of the worst I've seen in Europe, especially when you go to North Moldova. So I guess if that's important to you, the state of the roads, then that is a minus point. I'd say the other thing connected with that is maybe one client complained about the shopping malls in the center. There are lots of nice shopping malls outside. They're actually building the biggest one, a new one, and there's already one that opened a couple of years ago that's also very big, but it's not in the center. So probably if you're getting deliveries and all that kind of stuff, it's developed. So if you're spending a few months here and those things are important to you, that's going to be a minus. Getting here and getting out, the airport is quite small, so you don't have so many flights. I'll talk about that can be a good thing once you're actually here, because you don't have so much weekend tourists coming here, so that's good for you if you're already here, I guess, in general. We'll talk about that in a minute. What else has come up that's maybe negative? The city is small, 650,000 people, so it's mid-size. It's not like going to Warsaw. As I always emphasize, we want that city over 2 million, because it's 2 to 3 million population, Warsaw, with more modern infrastructure and maybe more foreigners to socialize with. Then that's not what you're going to find in Chișinău. It's going to be more local scene. They did actually have, it's some sort of digital forum last weekend. I missed it, so unfortunate that I came this weekend. Last weekend there was a lot going on last weekend in Chișinău, but I was kind of oblivious to it, and I went to Odesa. So it would have been better in hindsight to come here first and gone to that. So there is a startup scene here. There's like IT tech park that has been set up in Chișinău. So there is that small nucleus of kind of international startups, but it's not going to be like being in Warsaw or maybe the 3 Baltic states, in particular Tallinn and Estonia, where that's a lot more developed, or even Bucharest. So that is something to bear in mind, that you are in kind of a big village in that sense, and that's going to suit some guys and not suit others. So just be aware of that. And what are the other objections that come to mind? I don't think, write me if you have any other objections or any questions that would mean that you wouldn't be so, that would put you off here. I wrote also in my notes, no seaside. That's what you get in Odesa. You have the seaside. Not for me, is a little bit of a deal breaker. I grew up on the west coast, far near to the sea, so it's not that far away. It takes, even with this war and there is a border that you got, an international border you have to cross to go to Ukraine. Still only takes 4 to 5 hours to get to the seaside, so it's not that far away. But for me personally, I prefer the seaside vibe, and that that's, I guess, a minus point. It also can be very hot at some points in the summer. Last summer I was here, in 1 week it was over 40 degrees Celsius, so that's a little bit too hot. Basically, if you step outside, it's already super hot. You almost need a shower. Although it wasn't so humid. So I've been in Washington DC, where I lived for a year, for example, and there the humidity was crazy during the summer, and that is not the case here, at least. So maybe that's also a minus. It's not Dubai level or something in terms of extreme heat, but on the flip side, the rest of the summer it's beautiful weather like this. So there are pluses and minuses to that. So anyways, I've gone through what I think are the negative things, and maybe we could say, I'm going to get into it in the anecdotes, but level of English. If you're doing touristic things, people speak enough English to communicate with you. Again, young people speak a lot more than the previous generations, but if you're going to have like deep, meaningful conversations, then that might be a struggle if you don't speak Romanian or Russian. So those would be big helps here. So I guess if you're coming and you don't want to learn the local language, then it's more of a hindrance here than the 3 Baltic states. Warsaw, you will not be socializing so much with Polish people unless you speak Polish. A lot of people try to contest that with me, or they don't want to meet locals. Well, then fair enough, you can hang out in a foreigner bubble where you all use English as a lingua franca. And again, that's not going to be so strong in a place like Chișinău compared to, say, Warsaw, where it seems to be pretty developed. And we'll also get into that a little bit in the next part of my presentation. So I put the 5 things that I think are big attractions, especially for a single guy here in Chișinău. And Moldova, the wine, I've already talked about it. It is phenomenal. So if you like to drink wine, if you're a teetotaler and don't drink alcohol, I guess that's less appealing, but that is a real big draw. I actually mainly drink wine when here because it's so phenomenally good and a fraction of the price of Western Europe. Yeah, why not? And it just seems to be more part of the culture. Of course, you can drink hard alcohol or have your beer as well, but that is a huge thing. And going out to the vineyards, as I said, there's now 250 that have tours of wine tasting in the country, which is like insane for how small it is, and just the same big number. So for me, I've been to whatever the 10 that I list. I need to go back to some of them again because apparently they've upgraded many of them, and that is just a great experience. I went with Angela to a lot of them. I think about 5 of them stayed overnight, and they have guest houses with phenomenal food. The local food is also great. That should have also tied that in, that the local produce here is just amazing. It's the same as in southern Ukraine. You got that black soil and amazing climate for growing. Now so many amazing fruits and veg are in season. It's just blows me away whenever I get back to this region, just how tasty everything is. Everything, most of what everyone eats here is organic. It's just like the default. So if that's important to you, that's a huge thing here. For me, it is. I like good food. So that is something that is pretty phenomenal. And the local cuisine, if you like the hearty side of traditional food, then you find that here. You have mamaliga, you have what else is traditionally Moldovan, you have lechinte, it's what's known as Bessarabian cuisine, and mamaligas. You know, I should make a full video about the food to go through it, but overall it's tasty. There's the regional variation, which is like the Moldovan national cuisine, and then you have a lot of more international restaurants for international cuisines. So overall food is very good, and you have local markets right here in the center. You have the Piazza Centrala, which is like a huge bazaar full of all the, it's like local farmers market, just all the people are bringing in the food from their houses. It can be an old grandma just prepared something and you can buy it there, and it's just next level delicious in general, and a fraction of the price you're going to pay in say Western Europe for that kind of experience. I would say that you get, reason number 2, you get a more genuine experience coming here. It's not over touristic. This whole thing in a lot of Western Europe now, where there's just so much mass tourism that the cities are a little bit inhospitable during the summer. Locals don't want to talk to tourists because there's just so many of them. It's annoying, and it causes congestion this time of year. Everybody tries to come here in the summer months because the weather is obviously nicer in Europe, and that is not an issue in Chișinău, Moldova. I saw less tourists out last night in the most obvious place for them to go, and it's mainly going to be guys who come here as tourists because of the famed beauty of the local women, and they're a little bit more adventurous, I guess, guys, in terms of destinations than women are overall, maybe we could say. I think we see a lot of Western European girls here, then we know it's mainstream, which you do see in, say, Warsaw or the Baltic states. And I saw more foreigners in Lviv with the war who were tourists, right? Not guys who were volunteering for the military or something, although I did see some foreigners also doing that there. Then I see in Chișinău, also in Odesa, almost no international tourism. So here, very little tourism, and that means you get a more genuine experience. People are not jaded by just scores of tourists coming. You know, we used to have the phenomenon in Odesa of all the horny foreigners coming to chase the girls on the shores of the Black Sea. You don't have that here just because Moldova is small. It doesn't get that much publicity or marketing. So most guys don't even consider it. And yeah, there's just, I guess, an economies of scale with all these, you know, back in the day, the dodgy marriage agencies and scam sites and all that stuff. They were the Ukrainian traditional bride fetish. They were just pumping it out. They had one brand. And Ukraine, population-wise, is about, what, 20 times bigger almost pre-war. So, and also was visa-free. That's the other thing I said. Most of you are going to have a passport that allows you to come to Moldova and to Ukraine visa-free for 90 days every 180. So if you're thinking 3 months, you can just come here. And then you can go to Ukraine as well if you want to. I'll get into that in a second as well. So that makes it more genuine. People are going to be friendlier here as a result, I think. Especially if you hang around, not just come for a weekend, but spend a few weeks there, maybe even a few months. And yeah, I just think you get a more authentic experience because it's not over touristic. Value for money, it is considerably cheaper than Western Europe. I always use my flat white, my coffee that I drink, because I'm a big coffee guy. So in Odesa, I'm paying like €2.10. So what is that in American? It's going to be US dollars, USD, about $2.35, maybe $2.40. And in Ireland, in Dublin, it's going to be probably €4.50, €5 at this point, I would say. I had a look actually at the prices, but I used to pay $4.50 in Galway, my hometown. So now it's yeah, maybe it's even gone up a little bit since then. So that's about $6 for your coffee. So I think probably in the US is probably something similar in a nice place for an artisanal coffee, not a Starbucks or something like that, which I don't drink if I can avoid it. And here it is €3.30, €3.35. I went to some of my favorite places just to double check the prices. It's the same as last year. I don't think there's been any real inflation. They had a lot of inflation in Moldova maybe in 2022 when the invasion happened in neighboring Ukraine because they were spent a lot on Russian resources at the time, which they've now weaned themselves off for. So when they're getting the alternatives, it pushed up the general price level quite a lot in 1 year. But since then, it seems to be stable, at least in terms of euros. And yeah, so about 3.30, 3.35 to give you a comparison to other cities. In Warsaw, I was paying like well over €4. I was paying like €4.20, €4.40, so only marginally cheaper than Western Europe or North America. Still cheaper, but you know, for the same type of coffee. But here, yeah, it's and then the Baltics I was paying, I think in town about $3.90, $3.70, $3.60. That was kind of Riga prices around that. So it's a bit cheaper than say being in the Baltics. If I look at cocktails and stuff like that, it's maybe bigger the difference. Yeah, I only drank wine last night, so I can, yeah, it was like €5. I think one other place I paid $4, but for, you know, obviously tasty wine that's local here, whilst probably you're going to pay for a similar glass of wine in Western Europe. Probably it's going to be 15 euros, about that, at a nice wine bar. So yeah, that's a fraction, but that's something that's produced locally. And whilst the Baltics and all those countries, they don't have like local wines, so it's all imported. So there, yeah, it's probably 10 euros. The nice cocktails are 12, 13 there. Well, so here it'll probably be about 8, I think. Although I didn't double check it last night, I didn't get the cocktails. So they're just as better value for money, but it's not, you know, bargain basement. There's not a, I mean, it's borderline price level for, I'm thinking for Passport Bros, but it's probably still a bit too expensive because they have the alternative going to Latin America and to Southeast Asia. So probably still a little bit too pricey, but it is better value from that point of view. And yeah, we already talked about the lack of tourism. So let's get on to what most of you are waiting for me to talk about, which is the dating scene as a single guy. Let's start with the beauty level, since us guys, that's the first thing we judge women on, primarily. It's not the only thing. And obviously for a long-term relationship, you need to have similar enough values and be, you know, find someone who's a good match for you. But the first thing that attracts us is visuals. And here, in terms of looks, este bine, as they say in Romanian. So definitely on the very high end of the scale for Europe, I would say, never mind the whole world. So I would normally talk about when I mention the Baltics that girls are very tall. Here they're not super tall, so you have a little bit less the model look, probably because of the height, and they're not so blonde like in the Baltics, where it's the majority almost are blonde in some parts of the Baltics. Here it's going to be more brunette, I used to say that they were like people here are like the Latinos, but then Drifter Dan, actually, to give him his due, he pointed out that for Americans that means that they look kind of Mexican, and what I meant was more kind of like Argentinian. So they definitely look European. So it's more like Italian looking in that sense, I would say. And here they had a lot of people come during the Soviet times and also during the Russian Empire as well. So yeah, there's a lot of people who are either Ukrainian. There's even parts of the country you can go to, small parts where they actually speak Ukrainian more than Russian or Romanian. And they also have people come from Russia, from other Soviet Socialist republics, like from the Caucasus and stuff. So you have that kind of mixture. So I would say they're a little bit paler skinned on average than Romanians, just very slightly because of that, maybe a little bit blonder, and maybe at times maybe slightly taller. But again, compared to Baltics, people are definitely shorter here on average. And yeah, the youth level is super high. Would I say that, you know, if you've traveled around the region compared to the major Ukrainian cities like Odesa or Kiev, maybe just slightly half point below, and but definitely higher than Romania considerably. I think the beauty level overall. And actually Romanians, they always talk about the girls in the Moldovan part of Romania. There's Iași are the prettiest, and then Moldovans from here, the country, they're even prettier. So there's kind of acknowledgements in Romania whenever I talk to Romanians. That's the case, either from the guys or from the girls themselves when they're comparing themselves. So that is how people look aesthetically, very high level of beauty, which is the first thing we look at. Then in terms of values, you don't have any of the extreme woke nonsense that goes on in a lot of parts of the core Anglosphere. And yeah, I would say that women are a lot less financially emancipated than you're going to have typically in cities in the core Anglosphere or Western Europe in general, or even a place like Poland. I think they're less financially emancipated here. It's more culturally, it feels very similar to Ukraine, even though the people here speak Romanian as a national language as opposed to Ukrainian. But if we take Odesa Oblast, and here it's not, you know, there's one half of Odesa Oblast that was Bessarabian. It's pretty much the same, except for the national languages are different. And yeah, well, obviously Ukraine has a war, so that's one big geopolitical difference. So if you like Ukrainian culture and you're not brave enough yet to go back to Ukraine, then this is a great place. But remember, the city is only 650,000. You don't have the seaside. So the guy I met last night, I'm going to go into, he's actually now going to go down to Odessa, having chatted with me, because he thinks it's, you know, for a weekend it'll be worth his time. He has 3 months here. So in terms of dating the local beauties that you find here, if you come as a tourist, it's going to be quite hard with all the feedback I've gotten from guys over the last few summers. Really being a tourist or having the tourist vibe, it's pretty hard in this region in general. Girls are not as promiscuous as they would be, say, in maybe the core Anglosphere. So if you're looking to start an intimate relationship quite quickly, it is of course possible, but it's not as common here in terms of hooking up straight away. I would say getting intimate than it would be typically in the core Anglosphere. It doesn't mean that it's hugely different, but it is, I would say, a little bit of a difference in that sense. And yeah, they're not so much into tourists. But it being a foreigner and hanging out here, even if you don't speak the language, then you probably do pretty well. I meet guys who are from Latin America, because I've met them over a few summers, and they never learned the language, from what I can see, very well, even though Romanian is pretty easy to learn and close to Spanish. And they were dating girls who spoke English. But they seemed pretty happy. But it took them a while. They told me, a few of these guys who were Latin American, that they were here for, I think pretty much, they were come for 6 months, come for 3 months, leaving for 3 months. They were actually going between Odessa and Chișinău, basically, using the 2 visa-free allotments they had, if I understood correctly. So it took them about a year, so they're probably spending 6 months here before they were meeting girls and being around enough that they could start relationships. So don't think you can come and do that quickly. However, if you know, the hack is if you speak already Romanian or Russian to some sort of level and you seem more like a local, and girls are definitely going to be interested in my experience, hanging out here with clients and also just myself hanging around, seeing what goes down with my friends. Most of the guys I know here, I know some foreigners, a couple of Americans, and one is super high status. So yeah, he has a family here now, but he's been here for a long time. He's actually been good contact for me because he's involved a lot in local business and stuff. So yeah, I think it's fantastic, basically, if you're a single guy and you want to spend a bit of time, invest in building up a social circle here, you'll do very well. in the medium term, not in the short term. So if you're just looking for some summer fun and a quick high and a hookup and stuff like that, not that I personally have any problem with that, and I've definitely been the recipient of many a good experience on my travels throughout the world, it's going to be a bit harder here. I don't think that's probably a good reason to come here if that's what you're looking for, but yeah, in general, it is a great place for meeting women with that set of values and that amazing beauty, which I mean most guys are going to be interested in. If you want that kind of more Latina big butt or something like that, like the bunda brasileira, the Brazilian butt, not going to find it here. The people are European, they're not mixed in so much with Africans like in Brazil. So yeah, that is not going to be the aesthetic you see. So think European, maybe like Italian kind of look, and yeah, just mix in a little bit with Ukrainians and some Russians. I think that's a good way to describe it. And I think that was everything I want to say about Moldova before I get into talking about some of the critiques of guys who've come here. I actually have a lot on that, so let me just see, just briefly before I go to the second part. Maybe I'll just read through the comments just briefly myself and then I'll answer them at the end. Just seeing what's come up. I live in the UK, looking for property in Bulgaria. Okay, someone says some. I'll come to that, Stefan, later about that matchmaker. Yeah, so question, is there a penthouse market in Chișinău? Yes. We'll talk about real estate as well. So, I have several clients who've come here, and also this guy from Poland I met last night. Chris is his name. I won't say more in case he doesn't want me to say more about him. Maybe that's a lot of information, his first name and the city he's from, but I will describe a little bit what I observed. He watches the channel, so he may get some useful. I give him some tips anyways, as I like helping people in general, especially if they're fans of the channel and have watched my content. Yeah, so one of my clients basically, we could say, lives here part of the year, and there are a few things that separate him from one of my clients who came here at the same time. Actually, they were here at the same time, yeah. And he didn't enjoy Moldova, and he's very critical of it. And then Drifter Dan also came here on his own and tried to do it yourself, and it was an unmitigated disaster from what he wrote me. So let me go into some of the differences. So my client, who did very well, he's the guy I'm helping with citizenship by descent, because he has family ties here. He speaks Russian. He grew up speaking Russian. So even though that's not the official language in Moldova, most people, we'll say 90% of people in Chișinău are probably bilingual. There is a younger generation growing up that doesn't really speak Russian, but for most of the time, they probably speak some English anyway. So, and he's American, so he speaks fluent English obviously as well. But that fact that he had family ties here, so he's kind of Moldovan, both his parents are born here, so in this country, that he's not, okay, technically could say he's a visitor or going to be an immigrant, but well, we're going to get him a passport and citizenship, so he won't be an immigrant, he'll be a local. And even though he doesn't speak Romanian, he is in effect kind of a local, and speaking the language, having the family ties, he just bypasses all the issues about having credibility and the communication element by being able to speak Russian and having the family ties here. So he, because his parents had emigrated at a time where it was very poor here and things were quite desperate, they never came back. And I understand why, because it must have been pretty rough in the 90s when he came first time in 2009. It was definitely rough then. So I can only imagine what it was like back in 1994 when they left. And so he always had in his mind, like, Moldova is not a place to go to. But because I talked to him about it, we've been together in Warsaw and in Riga, he decided to give it a go, came here, and last time I checked in with him, which isn't that long ago, it's only a week or two ago, he has a Moldovan girlfriend, and yeah, he may end up spending a lot of time here, maybe even investing here, and he likes it here. It is small, that was his one thing, and so it can get a bit boring for him, so I don't think he would spend all 12 months here. But yeah, he likes it, and he had a lot of resistance to it in the beginning, just because, you know, that family experience of having immigrated out of here. And you do see a lot of reverse immigration now. I meet a lot of guys here who grew up in Western Europe or North America who I meet here, and they normally have some job that they're making money in Western Europe or North America, and they're spending here, and they said quality of life is so much better than what they had in the States, because obviously the money goes further and safer, and the city and the country has improved so much in the last few years that, yeah, it's just a really good option. So But I think one of the main differences is the fact that he understood the culture already pretty well, and he could speak a local language of sorts, and he wasn't been seen as a tourist. So yeah, that's a great success story. And yeah, hopefully we get all this final document. Still waiting from it. Like, that's the State Department and US bureaucracy holding us up. And yeah, I can't say for sure, but I'm blaming Doge and Elon Musk, because no one online has told me that they've ever had issues getting this document. Now we're waiting for the second time. They messed up the first time, and it's all since they gutted the bureaucracy in the US. So I wonder if there's a connection, but maybe there's not. Anyways, so he had a very good experience. Chris, who I met yesterday, he likes it. He's a guy who's traveled around. He's mid-30s. He's lived in Southeast Asia. He's lived in Latin America and Brazil, and I think Mexico, he said. And yeah, he's getting to an age where he kind of wants to settle down. Men, normally we peak on the dating market, we'll say between 35 and 45, so he's in the right spot to be doing that. He's going to spend the 3 months here, he said. He doesn't speak Russian or Romanian. He does speak some Spanish, so he could learn Romanian quickly. But, you know, by the time he'd learn it, would his 3 months be up? But he also doesn't focus so much on Instagram. I had a look, his Instagram isn't terrible at all, but he could tweak it a little bit, make it a little bit better, and use it more with the stories and communication with girls he meets and guys he meets, and then it would be something. He was a little bit resistant to that, which I think is, yeah, that's a bit of an issue in 2025. I always get a lot of feedback from normally older veterans of this region. They've been hanging out here maybe for 20 years now. They're, you know, pushing 50 or maybe even older, and they all complain about Instagram. Instagram ruined everything. Girls are always on Instagram. But yeah, that's where they are. So that's where you should be to a certain extent. And being resistant to it isn't going to help you so much. Hoping to find the one girl here who doesn't use Instagram, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. Yeah, the one thing is, I mentioned he didn't really have a good overview of the nightlife. I asked him where he'd been hanging out. It wasn't too many places. He didn't really seem to know where to go yet. So if he had invested in my guide, giving a shameless plug for the guide, well, that's the value of it right there, right? You know, haven't read it, where to go basically. And yeah, so that's down below in the description, link to that. And yeah, after our conversation, he was up for going to Odesa because he realized that, yeah, going for a weekend, if he's got 3 months here, makes a bit of sense to go down to experience Ukraine. Of course, normal caveat, it is a country with the biggest war in Europe since World War II, so you need to be comfortable with that. But the individual risk level on any day that you go there as an individual is very low. As reality, it's like a heightened terrorist threat level, basically. So you may have a rocket or a drone attack, and that oscillates very widely to no attacks for weeks to suddenly they're firing hundreds of them at the city, so in one go, and it's pretty hard to predict it. But yeah, it's worth going down to and checking out because there's almost no tourism, international tourism in Odesa. It's pretty wild. And there are places open until curfew there, so that's what I'll say about that. So overall, yeah, he's a guy who, if he spends time here, I think he's going to do pretty well, and he'll build up a social circle. It's a pity that he didn't invest already in learning either Romanian or Russian, because yeah, he looks fine. There's nothing, you know, it's going to knock him down in terms of the way he looks. He seems reasonably in shape, and yeah, he was taller than me, at least, if I remember. So I'm 178, so I'm 5'10", and I guess he's at least 6 foot. So what is that? So he's at least 180 something or other anyway. So he doesn't have anything that marks him down in terms of, you know, dating from that point of view, I would say. I didn't ask him what he actually does for a living, but and how affluent his lifestyle is. Of course, that's always going to be relevant in a society where women are less financially emancipated. Just bear that in mind. Here, you have to be that means you have to be the man with the plan. You're going to lead. You're going to organize the dates. You're going to pay for them. And yeah, that's the way it is here. So there's no going Dutch and splitting things 50-50 in general. Of course, there might be some exceptions, but that is the way it works. I wouldn't call it traditional, in inverted commas. I would call it more old school, which is how I more identify myself. As I'm in my mid-40s, I'm more old school, but not traditional. So this kind of environment suits me a lot. And yeah, I think looking at his, he already had some friends who were guys, at least one who was there with him, who was actually Ukrainian, but were counted as more or less local, not someone who's traveling. And yeah, if he works at figures out where to socialize, I think, works on his Instagram, actually has a bit of work to do, builds his social circle. If he learned Romanian at least, because it wouldn't be that hard for him, it's not a hard language to learn, then I think he would do pretty well here. He may want to come back again after his 3 months and solidify with all the connections, but yeah, and I think for what he's doing, I think he would meet like-minded guys easy enough. I don't think he's a guy looking for New York or London necessarily, and you know, the city, the part of England he's from, my father was actually born nearby, so I'm familiar with it. I've been there, seen my grandparents when I was small quite a bit. It's a bit more working class as a region and a little bit less economically developed, so yeah, it's probably familiar enough for him with obviously the change, nicer weather here and better food definitely, and better looking women. So yeah, he should definitely invest in Romania and put it as a medium-term project, I would say, and he will do very well. The other story is, of course, and he threatened, he wrote so many messages saying that he was with a boxing glove emoji, that he was going to come in this live stream, Drifter Dan, but he has not shown up yet to troll us. Maybe he's going to come on at a certain point. He came here on his own and tried to do a DIY. He told me that basically, yeah, he didn't meet local people. He's not interested in them. He's a guy who's mid-40s. He's actually almost late 40s. He's 47. And yeah, we were together in Warsaw, and then his friend actually came with me here. He'd also been with me in Warsaw on the in-person immersion. And both of them have been here to Moldova. They don't like the local people very much. They protest with me sometimes, but then they talk very disparagingly about them. They'll kind of look down at them, and they're not interested in learning the local language, not really interested in having a local social circle. They just kind of expect, they're kind of the PUA, pickup artist / sex tourist type. I would put them in more in the PUA type, but they did get labeled as sex tourists, they told me. or I heard through the grapevine when they were in Warsaw, so I don't know what they were doing up to when I wasn't there. And in general, they felt like they were entitled to be seen as high value by the local people, but because of, I guess, they think their passport, okay, compared to Moldovan passport, yes, the American is stronger. Compared to a Polish passport is stronger. So, you know, don't be a passport bro. You can't be a passport bro nowadays in Warsaw, plus the price level is a lot higher. So they just weren't seen as particularly high value by the local guys, I guess, because they had access to that high level social circle, and they were kind of rejected by it in Warsaw. And also local girls weren't interested. But if you don't speak Polish and you're not, one of three things: you're not famous, you're not a male model, or you're not like investing millions and millions into the country where you're very obvious, clear, high value that's going to be perceived without speaking Polish or a good social circle. It's very hard to network with high-level Polish guys or to date really pretty Poles, yeah, from what I see. So here, Drifter Dan went and did the day game malarkey, basically been a public nuisance. He said he had zero success walking around speaking English, annoying girls on the street. Yeah, if you're not, I should have also pointed out, if there's like two types of guys I see, if you want to put them in two buttons, you have the abundancy guys and the scarcity guys. So my first client also is, I mean, he's over the threshold of abundance. He's not as abundant as he'd like to be, but he is pretty abundant, whilst Drifter Dan and his friend are scarcity mindset. So they kind of struggle, and this is also why I think they're a little bit at times caustic in their comments, because they feel they're entitled to something and they don't get it. And yeah, he said he really had no success here. His friend who was here, he definitely had access to, like, we went out and we socialized, and he had access to, yeah, to nice girls and stuff who were doing interesting things, but to them it wasn't so clear his value. He is wealthy, he's in good shape actually physically, but he's already in his 50s, and yeah, what you really need to be maxing out your value as a guy when you're in your 50s, especially if you don't want to be just, you know, have a, of course you can always sugar date, right, and just have a you know, gold digger or something, some girl who's interested in your money. But if you want to have other things going on, you need to invest the time, build up the social connections, really need to be maxing out your value at that point. Yeah, he was a bit disparaging about heroes, about Warsaw. I will have a video about Conor's Law, about the languages, hopefully this week. It's supposed to be done. I was hoping it'd be done 2 weeks ago, but anyways, it will be done soon enough. They spent a lot of money trying to disprove Conor's Law, trying to prove me that by paying other influencers, they probably between them spent 200K So that's good market information for me, feedback that what I'm doing is pretty much right. With a few things I can learn from their experience, I think we can get maybe on my future trips a little bit better on the content creation for social media, maybe emphasize that a little bit more. But still, they don't have, this guy he paid one influencer 46,000, and one big part of it was getting photos, and they actually lowered his value. Can you imagine that? When I tested it with a bunch of Ukrainian models, and then his new photos with the new influencer, he spent about 20k. Apparently the photos are kind of faked. He had fake friends in them, which that's going to be a problem in the long run, because yeah, you might trick a girl with the fake photos in the beginning, but yeah, she's probably going to figure out after a few weeks, a few months, that you don't actually have that social circle. They're not actually your friends. So will it work long on, I guess, to get your foot in the door? But it's not, it'd be better to actually have your real friends at that level. But the photos are better, but they're not spectacular or anything, and the profile still is suboptimal. But it's a lot better than what he started with. But he spent, there you go, $66,000. And that's not counting the the actual paying for the photos, and he had photo shoots with models and all this stuff that looks fake as hell and doesn't fit his look, especially with the first influencer. In my opinion, that was the feedback. So yeah, that's what I'll say about that. Is there anything else before I get into what they actually wrote? And that's the juicy stuff. No, so I've kind of described the background. Like, look at the difference between that and the other two guys. Yeah, the first guy speaks the language, understands the culture, has more of an abundance mindset, and it's like night and day, the difference between them. And he's also not bitter and complaining all the time because he has success with a lot less investment. The other two, they could invest in learning the language, learning the culture, and taking a genuine interest in people here if they want to fit in. I'm not saying this has to be the place you come to, but they're not interested. So yeah, I don't know why they just don't go somewhere else, but they still write and still rant and rave at me, so I'll go into it a little bit. So the first critique, I'm going to quote them. This is the interesting stuff. Conor needs effed up markets and to go for the village girls that only speak Russian or Ukrainian, and then he can put his feathers in his hair and and try to snipe a few. Conor in Poland is already bad, weak as hell. I'll leave out the more graphic swear words used. So that is what, let's break that down. So I guess he sees here like Moldova, Ukraine, Baltic states, they see it as inferior or messed up compared to being in New York City or London, the core Anglosphere, maybe in Western Europe. And I don't know what they think is effed up. I mean, here women are, they're talking about the dating market, right? So women are way better looking on average, slimmer. There's no obesity crisis, shouldn't mention that either, which is like horrific in the UK, US. They're more classically feminine, and they're less emancipated, so that depends on what you're looking for. But I don't know, these guys, maybe they want boss babes, I'm not really so sure. So if they think that's an effed up market, I don't know what planet they're living in. It sounds great to me. But okay, maybe it's debatable over the financial emancipation, because also then you have a bit of scamming. Women tend to use men more because the expectation is the guy pays. So you need to know what you're doing there and not be a simp. You need to be a real man. And yeah, there's like quality of life is pretty good here, and women aren't looking to flee. They're not green card girls in general. If you wanted that, you should have come in the 90s or at least the early 2000s. So I'm not sure what they mean by effed up market. So it's actually a superior market from what I can see. But they say village girls, so the girls are village girls here. Well, it's a more provincial place. So it's not New York City or London, where women are going to be a lot more worldly and experienced and have presumably, although a lot of girls here will have traveled to Western Europe anyways, and may even have lived in the UK. I met a girl yesterday who lived in the UK when I was at the party and spoke great English as a result. So yeah, I think, but anyways, next to the same is only speak Russian or Ukrainian, or I think we can insert Romanian as well in there, since we're in Moldova. I mean, he's referring also to being in Ukraine, whatever. So that's a personal preference. Maybe some guys want the village girls who are going to be way more provincial and we'll say even more old school. I mean, you could say closer to traditional, right? I think the whole traditional Ukrainian bride fetish is a scam, personally. And I like to be specific in my language about what are actually the differences. But they're going to be a bit more conservative. They're from the village than from the city in general. So but less worldly, maybe a little less educated, maybe a little less ambitious. Although a lot of village girls will come to the big cities, unless I don't think these guys are going down to the small villages looking for them. To be frank, meeting them with the hens and the ducks around their feet, who only speak Russian, Ukrainian. So he's talking about girls who don't speak English. I think most girls speak basic English. They've had English in high school, whether it's in Ukraine or here or in Poland or wherever it is. But a high level that you're going to be able to converse on. Maybe if, you know, that's again a preference. Do you want a girl that you've got to ask why does she speak English? It could be for a very good reason. I do get some feedback from some other clients as well that they only want a girl who speaks great English, because only then, if they're in a long-term relationship, would they learn her language. So a lot of guys seem to think it's like status if the girl speaks English because they speak English as an American, so she's kind of coming up to their level. There was also a pickup artist, Tom Torero, that was his pseudonym, who also, when I met him actually in person, it was circa 2018, I think. I actually met him in a cafe. He said that to me. He claimed, even though he spoke Russian, there was no evidence he ever really spoke Russian, but he said that it was better always to speak in English and get the girls to speak English. Well, you have two issues with that. Number one is access. They just don't happen to speak English, then you can't converse with them. This whole thing that you're going to be using Google Translate or whatever, it hasn't caught up. AI hasn't and computing isn't strong enough yet to get over that barrier. No, if you speak the language, it's definitely going to give you way more access. And number two is credibility, because you kind of get put in the tourist box, and you need to get out of that basically for most of the, especially more attractive women here. And you know, why do they speak English? Why is it so important to them? Well, if they're only just traveling abroad and they see their life being here, then it's really not a high priority for them, unless they're working in something like that. So yeah, for me, I'm kind of neutral on it. The way I look at it is, like you said, I wasn't even planning on only get girls to speak only those languages. But anyways, that's kind of what the picture he's painting. I would say if I look at my girlfriends in the region, or women I at least had some intimate relations with over the last, we'll say, decade, I would say it's split between those who spoke good English or little to no English. So yeah, it's not like exclusively. Someone's asked, one of my clients asked me where I am on this week. Well, I'll answer him. I mightn't stay on so long because he's an important client, so I need to reply to that. It's kind of interesting. He wants to come and hang out with me here. Okay, that'll be interesting. Turn up for the books if he's asking me where I am already midweek. Yeah, so is that good or bad? Also, one of my friends is living in, well, he's also a guy who actually came up to me in a club because he watches the channel. I'll put him in the friend category. He was a little bit unfriendly to me at the end of the last conversation. I don't know if he still wants to be friendly, but anyways, I'll put it aside. And he said also he wants a girl who speaks English. He was hanging out in kind of a foreigner bubble in Warsaw. And yeah, also he kind of looks down a lot, I think. That's my impression of girls who don't speak English. Write me in the comments what you think. Like learning a language, I think it's more about maybe your world perspective. It could be just random that you end up learning it as well. Maybe your parents just made you learn it. Maybe your parents moved you to Ireland or the UK when you were young. It's nothing really to do with intelligence, a little bit, but it's not massive. I mean, if it were about an indicator of intelligence, then I must be the most intelligent man on the planet because I speak over 10. And as smart as I think I am, I don't think I'm the smartest. I think I'm well above average, but not the smartest in the world just because I speak over 10 languages to varying degrees of fluency, we'll say. So is it about worldview? If I look at realistically, if I'm going to be spending a lot of time in this region, what is the usefulness to me in terms of the girl speaking English? I already speak very good Russian. I speak pretty good Ukrainian. Like I met this Ukrainian girl at a party yesterday and we chatted in Ukrainian all the time. She speaks very good English as well, which is also part of it. It's not that you can't also just speak them in English or that they won't speak any English. But the value to me personally of them speaking English, it was a little bit hard for me. I met one girl I know from before and she only speaks in Romanian to me. And in the party with the loud music, I don't have enough exposure to this kind of party Romanian because I speak so much in Russian here as well. And it was just a little bit too tough yesterday. I just said, hey, let's chat another time because it was very loud and it was hard for me to follow the conversation. Whether in Ukrainian and Russian, I don't have that problem. So realistically, them speaking English, it doesn't help with communication that much for me. So it's not really a priority. Obviously, if you don't speak these languages, then they almost have to speak English. So I understand the difference. Are we going to go and live in New York? and I'm going to get her a job where she has to be a high flyer. That really isn't a priority for me to move. I'm not planning to move any long-term girlfriend to Western Europe or North America. It may happen, maybe life will change, but I see this region as my future, right? So for me, again, I mean, I guess they can talk to my parents more, but is that even a good thing necessarily? I guess if you're kids, it'd be, yeah, they will have to speak English eventually, but this is a very long-term project. In Shayla, for example, I invested in her learning Romanian because I also invested a little bit in her learning, improving her English, but really her English is fine for what she needs it for, just that she can't have very in-depth conversations with my parents or with my friends who don't speak Russian, Ukrainian, or Romanian. She has some family history with Romanian speakers, so she's super motivated to learn Romanian, which she speaks quite well now. So it's nothing to do with intelligence in that sense. She just wasn't as motivated to learn English because she speaks the basic stuff for the modeling when she's abroad. There's always a Russian speaker there anyways if she doesn't understand anything. So it's a little bit about your ambitions, I think, how much you value speaking English. A lot of girls who learn English, they've either lived abroad a lot, maybe they've dated a lot of foreign men, and maybe think it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just pointing it out, that might be part of the motivations. Part of the motivation for me to learn a lot of languages as well. So I get to meet a lot more foreign women. So yeah, for me, I'm kind of neutral on it. And I would say, let's say I hung out with 5 girls last night, 4 new, one I went out from before. We'll say having a level of English that would be very high. 2 of the girls spoke really good English. Almost like, I would say, not native level, but super, super high. And then the 2 others we spoke in, let's see, spoke in Russian. So I don't know if they really speak English. They didn't really speak to me in it. But maybe they even do, and I just don't know yet. And then the other girl doesn't speak great English. So yeah, I have to speak my weakest language with her, which is Romanian. Which is why I realize now, yes, I do need to improve my Romanian a little bit more. Maybe it'll be next summer before I have that nailed. And again, like if we're gonna live around here, if I'm in a long-term relationship, or in the region, do I really need it? Like, what's the value for me? Anyways, let me know what you think. I'm kind of torn in this point, whether... Anyways, the next part he says is that I can put my feathers in my hair and take a snipe of, to snipe a few. So I'm thinking Kevin Costner, you know, buff looking with the feather in the hair is the Native American when, you know, with the hottie squaw. So I mean, that for me, I'm all for that personally. I don't think he's trying to kind of hate on me a little bit, but I actually think that's in the end kind of a compliment from my point of view, because he thinks I'm going native, and they all like criticize the fact that I wore vyshyvanka, which is the Ukrainian traditional top, in one of my live streams, because they would never do that. They think it's low to beneath them. So yeah, I don't. Again, whether they speak English or don't speak English, it doesn't really make a big difference. I can speak to them in English, or I get them more access because the other foreign guys can't talk to the girls who don't speak very good English, basically. So it's only an advantage. And yeah, if I'm seen as going native because I'm more culturally adjusted and I understand the local culture, that's the strength, not a weakness. But these guys look down on it from their point of view because they look down at the people here. Again, Polish passport stronger than an American passport, but hey. And then they say Conor in Poland is already as bad, weak, and some other expletives. So let me talk about Poland a little bit. So when I was with these guys in Poland, I did focus on the Polish places where Polish people socialize because they had explained to me that's what they wanted. And it turned out that maybe they didn't understand themselves how little they respect Polish people and how disinterested they are in Polish culture. They refer to the Poles as peasants. Again, a country with a stronger passport in the US, but it's not New York or London yet. I think 10 years it will be. It's because it's becoming so cosmopolitan more so. So they really look down at the Poles, but also the Polish girls weren't interested in them. I think it's a little bit, I think, part of the reason. And with later clients, I focused a lot more in the Ukrainian and Belarusian diasporas, and I think the trips went way more. I think the next client who came after, I kind of only half did it with him, but then I completely switched after that. So fortunate for him, I think he would have got more of a like only focused on the Ukrainian Belarusian places. The reason for that is they are also not Polish, and as well, they're a bit more open to foreigners. The girls are a bit better looking on average, so there's also a bit more choice in that sense. And they are used to socializing language that's not their native tongue a lot more. So they're just a lot more open. Polish girls and high-level Polish guys in general, unless it's very obvious that you have very high perceived value, they will not socialize with tourists. They don't care. They have so many American guys running around. You're not novel. You're not interesting. They don't want to be associated with this kind of touristic, chasing the girls kind of PUA, like the day gamer malarkey that goes on, which is basically a public nuisance outside the train station in Warsaw, and in that Zloty Tarasy Mall, which is like scandalous at this point. There's going to be, I think, some sort of a public outcry at a certain point, because it's complete overkill. Girls ask me why they keep getting weird foreigners coming up to them in that shopping mall or outside, because they all hang out doing that. Not that these two guys were doing that in Warsaw, as far as I know. Drifter Dan did it here and had no success. He also told me he struck out in Romania. So, yeah. So what else to say about Poland? So, one of the main differences there is that I don't speak very good Polish yet. I have improved it over the last years a bit. I started learning it around when I went with these guys, but because I haven't brought so many clients there and not so often in Poland, I haven't really focused on it. But now I'm like at maybe an A, am I A2 even? I don't even know if I am at this point. But with Ukrainian, I understand a lot of vocabulary. But it needs to be at least B1, maybe almost B2 before it would be on that European Common Framework of Languages for reference about the level, before it's really going to be of value to me. And then, yeah, then the whole Polish thing opens up, I think, in the same way. But that's just more proof of Conor's law. If you learn the language, you'll have access to that. These guys, yeah, I would say afterwards, by focusing on the diasporas, yeah, it got stronger. And in any case, now I have the basic Polish. At least I'm a little bit less of a tourist for the Polish girls, and that helps. I also have some connections in Poland still that I hit up when I go there. And yeah, I met some Polish girls even on the last 2 times I was in Poland very briefly for like a night, and then another night, and then another night. So separately, just basically stayed overnight, had something to eat, and left the next morning, because I was going between the Baltics and Ukraine. But even hanging out there very briefly in the evening, met a few Polish girls as well who were good looking. So yeah, I kind of repudiate that at this point. But again, if I spoke better Polish, it'd be easier, which only emphasizes the point. Again, if you're not a male model, super famous, or like investing a lot of money, then I think without speaking Polish and having a high level of local social, it's going to be very hard to date attractive Polish women. If you want, the girls who are on that scale, we understand as guys between 1 and 10, below a 5, knock yourself out. Those girls will definitely date you in Poland, because they don't have good options amongst the local guys. But the girls that do, that are desirable, at least from a looks point of view, yeah, you're just not going to have access to them. Most likely, there may be exceptions, of course, but most of the girls who live in Warsaw, who stay in Warsaw, they're not looking for a tourist, because they're probably looking for a guy they're probably planning to stay in Poland, because it's so good there. And the prospects are pretty good going forward, in spite of the political situation where you have the Prime Minister from one party and the President from another party, and there's a lot of political deadlock at the moment. I don't think it may cause some problems in the next few years for their economy and reforms, and maybe the security of the country even. But I think overall, probably in balance, it's still going to be good. The second critique, so write me what you think down in the comments to go through. This is a long live stream today because I want to go through a lot of this. I think there's a lot you can learn from this. This is definitely a stereotype that I do meet occasionally, either in friends or clients. It's not the majority. This thing about using English all the time is higher status. I think if you desire to hang out in a foreigner bubble and just want to kind of take from the country and not really give to it more than spending your money, and this is kind of maybe your attitude, and it is what it is. It's not for me personally, but if other people just want to live in a country and speak English and hang out with other foreigners, then as long as they're not committing crime and they're contributing, even just spending their money, I guess it's fine. But they're not that important to the country ultimately. It's the people who come and really immigrate and actually provide value that in the long term are the people who will provide the future of the country. Critique number 2, quoting this Drifter Dam. Cosmopolitan expat cities where the lingua franca is English versus New Europe requires going native, aka intellectual regression. So Drifter Dan, even though he didn't show up, having talked a big game, he wants to move to Berlin because he says he can use English there all the time, and there's kind of this international kind of, working in tech. You have this also in this region, but just in smaller pockets. It's a bit more developed there now. You know, there are a lot of jokes about Berlin that it's a city where the unofficial language is basically English. And because there's so many foreigners living in certain parts of it, it's not a very capitalistic part of Germany. I actually saw a video just before I came on here where if you took Berlin out of Germany, it wouldn't change the GDP per capita of the country, which is unusual for a capital city. It'd actually be the same. It's basically average for Germany, and which is kind of remarkable, although it is improving in terms of GDP per capita. There was actually a slogan from, I think, the mayor from 15, 20 years ago, which is that Berlin is poor but sexy. So that's kind of been the vibe there, and it relies a lot on tourism and the kind of digital drifters like Dan to come and spend money in the city. I think that's going to change in Berlin pretty soon. It's very different to living in Munich. When I lived there, I spent about 18 months to 2 years there. I think it was like over 18 months, over 10 years ago. And if you did not speak German, it was a bit like you did not have access to the high stuff at all. But probably in Berlin nowadays, yeah, it's fine. But Berlin, is that the city for you? Depends. I always had a good time there, but I wouldn't live there. It's also pretty decadent as a place. Like if you want to be into a lot of kinky stuff, Berlin's your spot. So I don't know, maybe Dan is a regular dressed in leather and latex at Kick Hack Club on a weekend, but teach their own, knock yourself out there. It's not my scene personally, but you know, I like a good techno party. I'm just not into some of the extreme stuff that goes on, but to each their own. I'm not here to knock people if they want to live out their fantasies. I think the main point he's saying is that by, I guess, culturally immersing yourself and understanding local culture, making little friends, he says that you end up in intellectual regression. So he sees the people as intellectually inferior, is what he's saying. And listen, the creme de la creme, a lot of industry is going to hang out in London, New York. So that's true. But if you're at that top level, Drifter Dan isn't. Drifter Dan is basically a guy drifting about who doesn't have the means to get a visa. He told me he was taken off a bus on the German-Polish border because he's basically illegally trying to go into Germany, and he basically had to leave Poland. If it were up to me, I wouldn't be so lenient. He'd be getting deportation re-entry ban, but okay, they're still giving a lot of lenience. They're a lot more lenient towards Americans and Canadians who don't stay their visas. I mean, at the end of the day, as long as he's not committing any crime, it's not the end of the world if he hangs out a little bit longer, I guess. And when I live in Odesa, is it intellectually inferior? I have a collection of friends who are local and maybe semi-local, because some of them are Ukrainian, but they grew up in Germany, for example. And we have super intellectual conversations. And we have girls as well who are smart and educated and intellectual. So that's a little bit, you can find these things, you just got to network in the right places. If you don't speak the local language, is it going to be harder? Yes. And a lot of the times, the conversations are flowing between English, German, and Russian, because all my friends speak German. I'm part of the German community in Odesa, and even Ukrainian nowadays. So I guess, yeah, if you were there and you were speaking English, well, we just have to speak in English too. It doesn't bother me so much, since it's my native language. But yeah, I mean, when I lived in Brussels, I guess, I lived in a foreigner bubble, and obviously with respect to the European Union and that kind of politics, yeah, this is the creme de la creme. This is where all the movers and shakers are for that kind of niche. So also competition law, which is antitrust law in American parlance, that's the area of law I specialized in. It's one of the two. It's the number one place in the world to be. So obviously, if that's what you want to do in that particular niche, then you need to be in that city. But most of my clients, a lot of them are very successful guys, millionaires, decamillionaires, centimillionaires, maybe even, I don't know if I have a billionaire client yet, but centimillionaire des. And they're the leaders in their fields in the US. But they spend maybe not 100% of the year, but so much of the year in this region because they love it. And they're able to manage things remotely by delegation a lot of the time that they run their business. A lot of them are bricks and mortar that pay their taxes in the US. Some have other structures where they reduce their tax bill by setting it up. Not with this region necessarily, but with, I guess, some offshore stuff, which I don't fully understand yet. Some of my speculation, the whole offshore, unless it's to do with this region and the tax situation here, I can explain pretty well. And yeah, I don't see why you're going to intellectually regress. It's about the people you surround yourself with. You can hear, for example, there are lots of people who are highly educated. Are they going to be leaders in their field worldwide? Probably not, unless they happen to be from here, have lived in the West, set up companies, and maybe decide to come back. But yeah, if you're into IT and stuff, there's lots going on in this region because value for money is so high. It's same in Warsaw as well, because the other guy who said was came up to me in the club, who I've talked to and even mentioned anonymously here. He's involved in the tech industry and he loves Warsaw. He thinks it's one of the best places to be for it. He meets lots of people in that industry. And there you can be in this region, like these two guys, like Drifter Dan and his friend, were looking down at the Poles, but he told me Poland's amazing for it. This other guy who's clearly very successful young guy in the tech sector. And he's able to network there, and he said, yeah, it's very good for his business. Whilst I guess if he came here, yeah, it's a smaller city, it's not as developed, it doesn't have the same tech infrastructure, not going to be as good. So I think it depends on what you're looking for, and you'd have to find your niche. I don't find it, in terms of intellectualism, that different. And there's a different type of experience in intellectualism. I also have friends who are members of parliament in Ukraine, for example, who are educated in part in Western Europe. Also in the US, one of the guys I was hanging around with in Ukraine, he's not here now with the war. He's a guy military age who was outside the country at the beginning, so I guess he doesn't want to get prevented from leaving yet. He runs again on tech company businesses, and yeah, he's living in the West. Of course, they can have super intellectual conversations and go and party and meet pretty girls. I mean, think of the best of both worlds. So I don't see the big difference. Marginal, yes, that when I lived in Brussels and I was in that European Union institution bubble, of course I met people who were the high flyers, you know, as lawyers and politics on a European level. So if that's what I wanted to focus on, then I need to be in Brussels. Of course, we have the European accession process here in Moldova and in Ukraine, so I can very easily find a role in that and explain to local people and help with that process. That may even be something I do. I think I should go back and lecture in the universities here. I did it a few times, giving presentations in Ukrainian universities at the law faculties about EU integration. The process is something I may even do in the future. So there I can have my intellectual part as well. So yeah, I'm a little bit. You can also live in London and New York and not meet anyone intellectual. It's kind of, yeah, I guess he has the language barrier. And let me finish this because it's a very long live stream, but I wanted to go into it. I thought Drifter Dan, I was going to call him Desperado Dan since he has scarcity, since it's also got the alliteration with the D. I thought he'd come on and make it a bit more entertaining. So I did have one client, just to close it out, who incredibly successful as a trader, we'll say. Decamillionaire at this point, I would say. Runs his businesses in the US. He moved to Kiev, very involved in the local high value scene, shall we say, but with people politically, culturally. He made big investments in the cultural scene. Like, he also didn't just, the thing about, not only do Danny's friend have a scarcity mindset, they also have a take mindset, very common with pickup artists and the sex tourist crowd. They just see what they can take from a country. They don't think about how they can provide value locally. So my client who was in Kiev was the trader. He spent a lot of money. He was investing a lot of things there. Also businesses, even though he sold them again. He invested in real estate. And yeah, he played a role in that kind of more artistic, intellectual, we'll say, at least business elite as well. It's kind of a mixture between politics, business, and art to a certain extent. And he played a role in it in Kiev. He was giving back and investing in the country, in the city. And obviously he had to pull out a lot of his investments with this war, with this invasion. But that's the best way to do it, right? He's a guy successful, intellectual, smart, and but again, one of the big differences, he's providing value to local people and investing in them. And then he had access, he had an amazing social circle there, super high level. While Desperado Dan doesn't even have a visa, is drifting from country to country, feels entitled all the time. That the locals should worship him, or the pretty girls should be interested in him just because he's got an American passport, I think. And yeah, he's a taker, not a giver. He's not into. He doesn't like local people. Looks down at them. To be frank, he's only interested in the women, for what I can see, and maybe the cheaper cost of living. Kind of more the passport bro mentality. He does identify as a passport bro, at least he used to. So that's just not what's going to be successful. So I think I've given you a lot of comparisons that you can learn from there. I knew that today would be a long live stream, but it is the first from Chișinău, and I need to reply to my client, and it's already 8:20. I decided to skip the gym today because I traveled from Odesa yesterday. Went to the gym in the morning. Let me go through your comments. Otanel is back again. How are you? I'm good. I'm feeling pretty good now. I'm gonna go and enjoy the evening, and I'm gonna go to my favorite restaurant, which is nearby. Which places did you go to in Europe that shocked you when you came to Level Beauty? I haven't been shocked because I'm completely acclimated, which makes it a problem for me to relate to guys who live in the core angles here. I don't live in a place where there's an obesity problem. I don't live in a place where there isn't that classical femininity everywhere. Although all the women I dated in Western Europe and in North America even were classically feminine. They could all ironically cook pretty well. Don't know what that says about me. And no tattoos ever, no single moms, and never smoked. Non-smokers. I actually thought about yesterday when I was speaking with this guy from the north of England. That it's not like I put it as a rule. I just never have. It's just obviously intuitively not what I'm interested in. They're all deal breakers to me if I've never dated anyone with that background. So I don't get shocked by beauty anywhere. Even, I mean, I'm the kind of guy who meets lots of models anyways, everywhere I go at this point. So, yeah, where would I be shocked? I guess when I first came in 2009, I was pretty impressed by the beauty in Ukraine. Yeah, I guess shocked is maybe a little bit too strong because I was pretty acclimated. I've been traveling a lot of the continent, but it was definitely next level for me at the time. Which place would I recommend someone to go to in Europe if they want the traditional and beauty? I don't know, please write out exactly what you mean by traditional, because I have guys on consulting calls who tell me their idea of traditional is that she doesn't have blue hair. That would be most women in America or in the UK. They don't have blue hair. So they're not a crazy radical feminist. I mean, I think they're crazy. They're entitled to be radical feminists if they want. I just disagree with their political point of view. So what do you mean by traditional? Because women are not traditional here. They're more classically feminine, I would say. And they're way less financially emancipated. But they're pretty modern on all the other metrics we look at. Again, just to emphasize, even though it doesn't help my case, to encourage you to come here. Divorce rate is extremely high, also in Moldova, Ukraine, also over there in Russia, the Moscow Empire. It's also super high. These are the highest, over 50%. I think Romania is a bit lower. Poland is a lot lower. And the Baltic states are also pretty high, not quite the Ukraine-Moldova level where it's around 50%. Sex before marriage, extremely common. As I said, they're a little bit less into one-night stand or with a stranger or a tourist to hook up. It often happens as well, but I'd say a little less promiscuous than in Western Europe, or the core Anglos here, I would say. Definitely compared to Brazil. This guy last night had lived in Brazil, saying super promiscuous there. I think it's one of the most promiscuous places I've ever been. Again, if you're going for a short trip and you just want to smash a lot of hotties, then that's great. But if you're looking for a long-term girlfriend, maybe that's not the best place if you want one. If you don't want an open relationship, putting it that way, or you're not okay with your girlfriend or wife sleeping with other men, and probably not the best place to go to culturally. Doesn't mean everyone's like that, of course. You can be selective, but let's be frank about it. It's not traditional. But I even see there's a channel watch, and I even talked to the guy in chat, Swedish Kingo, and at one place he was using the word traditional about Brazilian women. I thought it was ridiculous. Even though I like his channel, I gotta say they are not traditional whatsoever. It's one of the most promiscuous places I've ever been to, and there's a lot of feminism even radical feminism in Brazil. So I don't know why he's talking. Girls are all tatted up as well. So here, yeah, I mean, if you think you want a woman who's less financially emancipated, then yeah, that's more the norm here. More classically feminine, yes, and they put more emphasis on their appearance than an average in the core Anglosphere. But in other parts of Europe, women also put a lot of effort into their appearance. It's not everywhere in West Europe that's like that, I would say, but definitely there's a difference. And overall, they're just aesthetically better looking, in my opinion. I think this is the region of the world where you have the highest level of beauty on average. So here is great. Again, Baltics pretty similar, but girls are taller and blonder, so aesthetically. And maybe they're a little bit more financially emancipated than here in Moldova or Ukraine. Poland, again, they're more financially emancipated. There isn't a massive difference in Warsaw compared to Western Europe. I mean, Ukrainians, and I watch some of the content creators, they try to hate on them a little bit because they're less financially emancipated. So they call them gold diggers and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, just don't date them if you don't like those values. Just date the Polish girls then if you want. I mean, most Polish girls will probably go 50-50. So, which is the norm, say, in Ireland, where I'm from nowadays. Yeah. So you need to be more specific. But I love this region. I mean, why else would I be promoting? I just think you get a lot of great things. Of course, there's some downsides, but value for money is better. The food is amazing. Wine is amazing. I think it's less touristic, which means people aren't just jaded. People are a bit more open and friendly, especially when you speak their languages. Average level of beauty is way higher. Not that I struggled too much in Western Europe. I just remember talking about how when I lived in Munich, I struggled to get the girls to date me long term who were like the models from the city, or the beauty queens, or the very desirable women. But they would hook up with me. But now I know, I've coached so many guys and mentored them, that my perceived value just wasn't quite high enough. I would have, if I stayed a few more years in Munich, it probably would have been. But that was more the issue. But yeah, I just think overall for me, this is the best region of Europe. You don't have the woke nonsense that you see in the UK, although I think we've gone past that anyways. But you have certain issues, geopolitical risk with Russia, for example. Infrastructure is definitely less developed. So, although for the medical system, everything's so cheap and the level of quality is not that much lower. A lot of guys say that to me, oh, but if I have a medical problem, where would I go? It's like, I mean, unless it's something very specific, should be fine here as long as you're paying in the private sector, not relying on the public service. And it's a fraction of the price of being in Western Europe or North America. Anyways, especially North America, it's insane the cost of healthcare here. It's a fraction. Maybe it's not quite 10%, but it's like 20%. So yeah, as long as you're going to the best people for the things you need done, it's still good. Anyways, Stefan says, well done, mate. So you returned where you're sitting, looks like City Park in Odesa. No, I am in the cathedral, the park around the cathedral in Chișinău, Moldova. But similar to City Park in Odessa. He's in Antalya, Cleopatra Beach, Turkish Riviera. It's going to kill you. Not really, but it's 36 Celsius there. Well, Stefan, it is super hot there. A lot more ambient temperature here. So what advice would I recommend for anyone who's looking for a blonde, blue hair, blue-eyed, traditional, feminine woman? Again, write what you mean by traditional, because it's one of those words that's so ambiguous to me, or malleable, that it seems to be one of the buzz marketing words, because a lot of guys, they just think they relate to the word, but then they're talking about different things. But blonde hair, blue-eyed, feminine, go to the Baltic states. 3 Baltic states is the best place in the world for that, in my opinion. If you throw in the beauty, and I guess they're a little less financially emancipated there than, yeah, I think definitely compared to even Poland. Stefan says he only speak in sterling, the best exchange rate abroad. Okay, so maybe you got British pounds. Adam says he lives in the UK but is looking to buy property abroad in a village for holidays. He's looking at Bulgaria and Hungary. He likes forests and lakes and good food. Do I think Moldova is a good option? For the food and wine, definitely. Nature, do I think the nature is really that amazing here? It's okay compared to the countries around it. I'm just thinking, you're talking about, I don't know, compared, Bulgaria is more mountains. Like, there aren't any mountains here. There's no skiing in Moldova. There is in Ukraine, the Carpathians not far away. So a bucolic kind of village, yes, you have a lot of them, but infrastructure is going to be pretty poor. I personally wouldn't live in a village in Moldova, having seen a few. Forests, I mean, there are woods, definitely, because I went out at the vineyards that are surrounded by woods. And lakes, I'm not sure there's a little bit of water in the city, so not sure. I think if you're more into buying a vineyard and that kind of style, then this would be the country, definitely. Best value for money in Europe. Stefan says, great local, Conor better than Heart Rocket. He says, well, that's your opinion, Stefan. Well, where are they? Let's talk about them for a second, because they are in Valencia, which is a fantastic city. I love Valencia. But they don't seem to ever be in Ukraine. It's over 3 years. And they're talking about basically girls who, women who are there who presumably can't find a local guy or want to emigrate onto the US in general. While those white would be the other matchmaker. It's like, again, if you want to, I guess, find a woman who's over 35 and a single mom, which is not what I want personally. then I guess maybe they can help you with that. I don't know, but it's not very interesting for me. One client does send me their videos regularly, so I end up watching them. Also I get fed them in the suggested videos, and but yeah, I don't learn anything from the videos. I mean, obviously I'm not the target demographic. They're better than, in my opinion, the Match Guarantee, which is just like zero novelty, nothing interesting for, at this point, years. And they seem to have moved to somewhere by the seaside, presumably Georgia and Batumi, having fled Canada for some reason in a rush. And yeah, there's just nothing in that whole industry that's novel or interesting. They're basically talking about women who now at this point mainly live abroad for many years. They can't find a guy, I guess, and they want to re-immigrate. So you can you can give them the green card. That's the exchange of value. And yeah, I think it's a bit. Let me think. Do they have any videos recently? But they're not here in the region. They're not showing you what life is like. They don't even show you Valencia's life, for goodness sake, which is a cool city with a lot of women who are from Ukraine, Russia, Belarus. Because I met the girlfriend of a friend. Maybe I said this in the last live stream. She's living in Valencia. She said like she doesn't really practice Spanish so much because she speaks in Russian, Ukrainian so much in Valencia. So there are a lot there. But yeah, there's nothing interesting I find in their videos. They basically take a very basic point and they go on and on and on for 10, 15, 20 minutes, hammering through this very basic point. That maybe for newbie guys is interesting to hear because they don't have any experience, and maybe I just, at this point, for doing this for so long and having an audience that's a lot more educated from a cultural and dating point of view, that's what I feel. Although sometimes I get the newbie questions here in the live stream. But yeah, very basic stuff and nothing novel, and basically I guess their whole thing is the women that can't find a local guy living in Western Europe already or really want to emigrate to North America. Or maybe they have a few that are still in Ukraine, but yeah, I don't really get the attraction. I think that, again, I'm not their target demographic, same with Match Guarantee, so it doesn't really matter if I don't find it interesting. But I think the overlap that we had before, I said in a few videos when some of them were mentioned, it's almost completely gone. I just don't feel we're even in the same industry. There was a lot of overlap before, even though I'm obviously not a matchmaker, because I was talking about dating in Ukraine. I had the most prestigious channel, I guess, or the most valuable channel about lifestyle there from 2020 to 2022, because I was only in Ukraine. And they were also filming and talking, because they were living in Odesa, same with Match Guarantee was also in Ukraine. So they were talking about a lot of stuff going on, so that was more interesting also for me to listen to. But after 3 or 4 years, over 3 years, and they don't seem to have ever even been back in the country. They don't really have any idea what's going on here anymore. You can't. Even if you spend like a year outside, especially this region, if you spend a year away and you're not involved in what's going on, you really lose touch. So they're basically, I guess, they would know more about being an immigrant to Spain and maybe meeting a lot of, because Luba's there, and I guess she meets a lot of women who are Ukrainian or maybe even Russian, or she mentioned Kazakhstanis. Apparently they sent her out a message about, are there clients interested in Kazakhstanis? Definitely go to Kazakhstan. I definitely recommend it. Amazing place, Almaty. I can't talk about it enough. Can't wait to finally get back there because clients keep postponing. But anyways, this client I hope he doesn't want me to fly to Almaty. Well, maybe I hope he does. Let me see. I'm really curious to why he wrote me the message, where I am already mid next week. Yeah, so I don't really have much more to say. They're not really relevant, I think, to what I'm talking about, but some of you probably have been watching them and we're interested mainly in the dating thing. But yeah, if you want to date immigrants in Spain who can't find a local guy, that's why they needed a matchmaker, presumably because they're middle-aged single moms. Not that it makes them bad people, of course, but yeah, it's just not interesting to me. I mean, I'm gonna go and socialize, hang out. I had one local friend who saw me when I was coming down here. He's a guy in his, I guess, mid-20s who DJs here. And maybe I'll go and, I'll go to my favorite restaurant, chat to the staff. I like them a lot, very good vibes. It's a Ukrainian restaurant, actually. And maybe meet some local hottie girls who are in their mid-20s or early 20s and doing interesting stuff here. Don't have tattoos, don't have kids already. don't smoke, all the things I like. I just don't see the overlap really. But it keeps coming up in these live streams. I guess you guys, some of you are still interested, but they have nothing really to do with the region anymore. That's the thing. You can't stay away for 3 years and still be relevant to Ukraine or Moldova or Kazakhstan, where they've never been, which is hilarious. But they actually said something. One thing they said interesting from a business point of view is like they have these kind of like elite matchmakers, elite, and to charge like $50,000. Luba said to find a wife for like some old rich guy. And let's say the guy that she was talking about the video was 69 or something. So everybody could agree that's an old age. But he wanted a huge age gap, so they reached out to Luba. Can they find a woman who would agree to it because they'd be taken care of financially? And she said all the girls in her database said no, they weren't even interested. So that's interesting, I guess. But the fact that that seems to be a big part of their business when the American matchmaker just can't find a match because this guy, because his demands are probably so unreasonable that they tried to reach out to them. And even Luba couldn't help them. It's kind of interesting, but that's just what I found interesting about the last video they had. Otherwise, I found it irrelevant to my life. For most of you guys, yeah, if you're coming to this region, they can't really help you too much, I think, nowadays. But teach their own, as long as they're not doing anything unethical or dishonest. I wish them the best of luck. Just thinking of Joe from Match Guarantee, some of the hilarious stuff he said in the past. Sorry, get back to your questions here. Hey Conor, so question, is there a penthouse market there in Chișinău? Yes, there is. You write me an email at conor@conorklein.com. It's also down below in the description. I have this contact in real estate development. Yeah, he's made a lot of money here with it. He's definitely a very good contact on it, so we can discuss it if you're looking for investing in that. We can direct you in the right place. Eduard says, do I think it would be good if Moldova can get back the Budjak region? So Budjak region is the part of Odesa Oblast that have been in Bessarabia, so they have a very similar culture here to Moldova, although Moldovan Ukrainian culture is relatively similar anyways. What was the question? Do I think it would be good? No, I don't think we want to start changing the borders. Both countries should join the European Union, join Schengen, and then we don't have an internal border and we don't have to have wars or fighting about it. If they come to an agreement and the populations agree and they want to change the border, that's fine, but that's very unlikely, especially with the Russo-Ukrainian war raging. I don't think we want to make changing borders the priority, so no. In case bringing Moldova to more wealth and better feeling of life, well, they'd have access to the Black Sea better. They only have access now at the moment through a port on the Danube, where they did exchange territory with Moldova many years ago, so they gave Ukraine the right to use a road that goes through Moldova for a few kilometers, and then the Ukrainians gave Moldova it was like 500 meters worth of riverfront, so they'd be able to build a port and actually have access down into the Black Sea. So if there's some small exchange like that, I think it could help. But both countries joining the European Union and having open borders, internal borders that are open, and then a hard external border and free trade. This, for me, is way better for both countries, and both of them are EU candidate countries. Moldova's accession should be relatively simple. Ukraine's won't, because obviously with war raging, it's a big country with a huge agricultural sector, and farmers have a disproportionate amount of influence politically. Even though I grew up in a farming region, I had a lot more sympathy for farmers when I lived there when I was younger. Now I think, just realistically, they're important culturally, I understand that, in these rural areas, but economically they're not. And Ukraine coming in or having free access to sell its stuff in the rest of the European Union with their amazing food, and it'll only get developed more and more to use that black soil, and yeah, it's a win-win for both countries, but not for the vested interest farmers in places like Hungary or Poland that they're just not good as producing stuff. So c'est la vie. I'm all for more competition. Anyways, let's move on. Wayne says nothing wrong with village girls in his honest opinion. Good for you, Wayne. I know that you tend to do kind of good with younger women who come from smaller towns to the big city, as we've discussed. Altanos, you say the village girls, what about the town girls? Can you explain what you mean? There, Daniele, that's no vibe there, only good wine. Yeah, the wine is great. Wayne says, nonsense, Danny boy, try again. I'm not sure what that was in reference to. Comparison with Astana or Almaty. You're gonna have to explain what, because a bit of time has gone by, I guess, at this point, probably half an hour. comparison. Well, Astana versus Almaty. Almaty has the mountains and the nature nearby. It's a bigger city. Astana is cool for a little bit of partying in, and I think the architecture in the city center is good, but Almaty for the win. It's like an amazing place. Ukrainian ombudsman said more and more 70-year-olds leaving because salut, spoken Ukrainian there, leaving because conditions are better than you. RIP Ukraine for love tourism. Listen, the scammy marketers will claim they're traditional Ukrainian brides waiting for a good man to come to the West, and they'll scam these guys anyways until infinity. Or they will. I said the whole industry is dead. And the fact that Harrek are looking at the Kazakhstani market, another indicator. But they will still use the branding. That's the only thing that I didn't realize, or I didn't foresee, that they would, even when the girls are not going to be Ukrainian, I think they're still going to use it because it's a brand. They don't have to invest money explaining Moldovan women and Kazakhstani women. These guys who don't really care. They just want a woman who's better looking and from a poor country who's willing to, wants a green card, basically. Whether that work out in the long run, I'm very skeptical. But definitely it's going to be, you're going to see a little bit of maybe brain drain as they get the opportunity more to go and live in Western Europe. And but then a lot of them will come back with better experience and set up business in the future. I meet a lot of entrepreneurs here, men and women who do that. So you will be, I mean, there's so many Ukrainians abroad, especially single women already. That is the future. And I guess that's a minus if you're interested in living here from one point of view. Water is back on. Water is back on. We didn't have water for a day in Odesa, which was sucked. But it was only one time I couldn't take a shower. That was after the gym on Friday evening. Lower traditions, better overall. What's the name of my favorite restaurant in Chișinău? By the guide, it's down below. I don't want to say where I hang out all the time either. There's a very good security reason for that, so I'm never going to say it. But you might be able to figure out from the guide. Bibo Zam says, very surprised for you that you say Baltic are less financially emancipated than Poland. Seems like Poland is really the financial powers. Yes, and just the society is a lot more progressive there. But if you listen to all those content creators who are pro-Russian MAGA, they take conservative-based Polish women, and then they live in one of the most liberal cities in the entire region. And I don't have a problem with it, personally. But they were just completely misrepresenting what life in Warsaw is like. Of course, if you go to a small Polish town, people are very conservative and very religious, I think. But not in Warsaw. Those people, they don't live in Warsaw, they live in the small village. So, and of course, those guys are never going to live in the small village, 99% of them, when I see, or learn Polish or really understand Polish society. But Baltic women are less. I wouldn't even say, even the ethnic Balts, not talking about people who are ethnic Ukrainian or ethnic Russian there. Even they definitely expect the guy to pay the bill all the time. So there was no 50-50 of what I could see in the Baltics. But in Poland there is. Just saying what the cultural norm is there. When you say go to the Baltic states, you mean specific parts of the Baltics. No, but personally, I prefer Riga the most. It's the biggest city, best infrastructure. I would say still best infrastructure, although there's a big debate with Vilnius. And I think for high-level events and stuff like that, it was definitely better in Riga than Tallinn and Vilnius. Beautiful, they're all, the level of beauty is so high there. Culturally, it's hard. I get on best of the three Baltic industries. I get on best with Lithuanians and Lithuanian women, definitely. But man, the longer I spend all these things, I also started to make a lot of friends who are from Latvia because I just spend more time there. Also Estonia. Estonian culture is very different. They're a lot more taciturn. They don't speak very much. So probably for me a little bit more difficult than Latvia and Lithuania. But people are super friendly with all of them, to be frank. And women are beautiful. I don't know. It's like just the culture is obviously different to here, but now it's like the best time of the year to be in the Baltics because the sun sets very late, come up to the summer solstice, and there's so many parties and socializing go on. People haven't gotten their holidays abroad yet, so it's a phenomenal time to be there. One of my clients postponed, that's why I'm not there next week. But let's see what my other client says. Maybe he wants me to go to the Baltics, so I'm going to write him after this. When do you say go to the Baltic states? Okay, already answered that. So I would say Riga number 1, Tallinn number 2, because I like the nightlife in both, and then number 3 would be Vilnius. Number 4, Kaunas, and number 5, Tartu. I would have thought Baltic women would be financially empowered with Polish women. I think culturally, when I say emancipated, doesn't mean exactly how much money they have, although in Warsaw, salaries are going to be the highest in the region at this point. And Latvia is not doing very well economically, but the culture of women being emancipated and the kind of balance between focusing on home life versus their career, it's definitely less financially emancipated in the 3 Baltic states in general. And I met girls, I guess we could call them boss babes. I mean, they run companies and stuff in, say, Tallinn, for example. But yeah, they still seem in that kind of courtship phase to be a lot less financially emancipated. So, while some Polish girls in general, they want to split the bill and stuff like this. Yeah, I would personally just pay the bill anyways if I invite a girl out. And that's something I didn't do when I was like in my 20s, because that was the culture in Western Europe that I grew up with, that just split the bill on a date. Even with girls from this region, but they were used to it because they were used to living in Germany or Belgium, wherever it was, so they just accepted it. But it would have been better if I paid the bill. I realized that in hindsight. It would have got me more action, should we say, more successful dates. Would have just cost me the 50% of the meal. But hey, that was the culture. I didn't understand these nuances 20 years ago. Yeah. When I think back, I even had some girls pay the bill for me. But they were the girls who did want to hook up, but also for some reason want to pay the bill. So that's the best of both worlds, from my point of view. Yes, our final questions. Been on for over 100 minutes, and Drifter Dan didn't show up. He chickened out showing up. Talking a lot, but delivering very little. Probably what happens in real life as well with the ladies. Hope it works out for Drifter Dan, but not if he keeps drifting. And my next suspicion is they're going to spend on a new influencer, probably between them another 40k, and probably they will hit the 300k mark probably by next year. And then my prediction is that they will do what I advised them to do 18 months ago, that they are so upset about when I gave them very candid advice, but it wasn't what they wanted to hear. But they will pretend it was all their own idea, and I'm still wrong. I'm sure of that. And they will still dispute Conor's law, which should be the next video on the channel. Later Grader says, would you generally recommend Moldova over Ukraine for love tourism, romance tourism, like if you wanted just to meet women? Yes, because you should not go to Ukraine if that's your only interest. It is a country with the biggest war in Europe since World War II. So you have to be, I had a guy who was on my call about going to Ukraine. I tested with my mailing list, for example. And this guy had been persuaded by a matchmaker in Ukraine. One I don't think is particularly ethical, having listened to the conversation. And he had no interest in Ukraine, no genuine interest, no understanding. He told me he lived in Russia for a year 20 years ago, but that's the only contact he really had with the culture in this region. He lives in Dubai. He's quite wealthy, and he seemed like a nice, genuine person. But why is he coming to Ukraine? Like, it was like I think he thought he'd be going there and kind of saving a woman or something for the war. I'm like, man, don't go to a country of war. Are you willing to have air raid sirens, have rocket attacks, have drone attacks, hear live bangs, hear anti-aircraft fire in Odesa? Like, and he was like, no. Are you out of your mind listening to this very disingenuous matchmaker telling you to go there? I think it's outrageous. Like, if that's your only interest, go to Poland, chase the Ukrainian women there. But I guess then they have competition, so they think it's like they'd have an advantage Ukraine. But in general, women who stay in Ukraine in general are the ones who either want to meet a local guy or want to live in Ukraine. And obviously, if you're coming to be a wife hunter, then that's not recommended, or a love tourist, you say. Here, culture is similar. Beauty level not very different. I think there's less plastic surgery here and lip filler stuff. That's a plus, but probably a little bit better looking at this. I think so, yeah, having been at Odessa. The level of beauty is amazing there overall. And yeah, there's almost no international tourists in Odessa. There were a lot in Lviv. So because people perceive the West as safer, so they go there more. And it is statistically a bit safer. But the risk is not so high either, but don't go if that's your only reason. Go if you're generalized in Ukraine. Like one of my clients I'm going to meet in Ukraine, we're going to do our Ukraine experience, I guess, because it's not the normal experience. He's already going there anyways. He's been on many of my programs before. He's going to meet a woman in central Ukraine, and I'm going to accompany him, and we're going to hang out there, hang out in Kiev and Lviv. That's provisional itinerary. Yeah, but he's genuinely interested in Ukraine, so that's the kind of guys I want to help with going there. Otherwise, come here. If you're only interested in girls, come here, but you're probably going to have to invest more than a weekend to have any romantic liaison, and or go to Warsaw. I mean, there's so many Ukrainians and Belarusian girls there. Or show up in Valencia, but don't pay hard market. You can meet, just go to a local bar. Apparently, find out where the Russian Ukrainian girls hang out there if that's what you're looking for, and I can even find that out for you. I'll ask my one of my good friends, his girlfriend, or I'll ask him. Yeah, where to hang out, because they live in Valencia and they speak Russian Ukrainian. So there you can meet so many girls, and you can have your romantic hunt there. Interested in your opinion when you go back to Romania and Czechia. Yeah, might go to Romania on this trip, just see how much time I have. Maybe go back to Bucharest and check it out. So many memories of that country from 10 years ago. Yeah, I did see one foreigner at the bar I went to on Thursday, and he made a lot of mistakes. And I didn't approach him. I probably should have gone over to the guy, because I mean, it's kind of, I mentor guys, so maybe he could have become a client. Maybe I should be a little bit more forthright. But he was the only foreigner at the bar, from what I could see. And yeah, the girl was pretty. He was talking to. She was definitely interested in him, attracted to him. But then he really pushed to kiss her. You don't do that in this culture. Like, you don't. Like, they don't make out in front of, especially guys they don't really know. Very rare they make out with you at a party in front of their friends and everybody who's watching. It happens sometimes, but very rare. And if you're pushing for it, you look a little bit needy, because she was obviously attracted to him. And then when he kind of forced her to kiss him a little bit, and she probably felt a little bit, you know, there's a bit of slut shaming in that sense, that if they do that, they feel a little bit like they've been cheapened because they made out in front of their friends. Now they're seen as maybe been a bit easy. So I never push for a kiss ever. I wouldn't recommend that anyways. And then afterwards, did the classical mistake with, he tried to get her to give her phone number, because it seemed like he was trying to get her phone number. First of all, why do you want a phone number? Instagram is where all the action is. Exchange Instagram, and yeah, he was. Then she said no, she wouldn't give it to him, even though he had kind of got a kiss out of her. So he blew the whole thing, from what I could see. At least that was my perception. But he had no competition in the bar as the foreign guy, for sure. Other than, I guess, your Irish boy here, if I had talked to her. But yeah, some are going to be open to meeting foreign guys. But yeah, again, speaking Ukrainian is going to be a huge advantage. Hanging around, having social, it's all the same stuff. But I don't think you should go to Ukraine if that's your only interest, because it's a country of war. Are you willing to see? You may see people be killed. It can get very gruesome. I hope it doesn't happen to me, because I've actually remarkable in haven't had that issue. But I did have a couple of close calls, nonetheless, where things blew up pretty close to me and killed people. So yeah, I have other reasons to be there. I want to see Ukraine win. I want to help as much as I can. Everybody could do more. I do try to help. And I have the geopolitics channel, which unfortunately hasn't gotten the traction yet, but I'm going to change it and make it more about interviews now. So hopefully in a few months, there'll be something that can contribute to Ukraine and the defense of the country, at least in terms of awareness, maybe even raising money eventually for the armed forces. So yeah, I have a reason to be there. Like, even if there were no single women, I would still go. And with that mentality, I think you probably will meet the love of your life in Ukraine. That's what my client said. I might meet the love of my life, but really that's not the priority. I just want to go and hang out with me and have my tour and my insights and my mentoring for Ukraine and travel around. So if you're interested in that, write me an email, Conor@conorclient.com. We can discuss it. Would I recommend Estonia if someone is looking for a blonde hair, blue haired woman? Yes. But remember, the culture is very similar to Finnish culture, and yeah, they don't speak a lot until they get very drunk, which they do, and they will do it a lot during the summer months with the great weather. And it does have a large, we'll say, ethnic Russian population, although a lot of them are actually ethnic Ukrainians, and it has a lot of Ukrainians who've come with the war, and so that's also something there. However, with the exception of one or two places where they socialize, most of the best places to socialize are Estonian speaking, which means you will use English and you will not meet so many ethnic Russians there. They're really divided on the socializing thing. But there are a few places, two in particular I like where it's Russian speaking. And one of them, I'm friendly with him. He invites me to all the stuff. They have super good parties the last few days. But he wasn't there to film it for you. But maybe I get there in the next month or so and I can do that. All right. Guys and girls, if there are any women who are watching this live stream, I've been on for quite a while. It's now 9 o'clock. Almost 2-hour live stream. So I hope that is enlightening for you with the experiences that I see with clients for here, also with the languages. Let me know your comments if you're watching it on replay. Down below is our links that are important. One for the guide for Moldova, as I said, my review of the vineyards, the bars, clubs, restaurants, cafes. Don't write me a message on Instagram, buy the guide because all the information will be there. Same for Ukraine, I have the guide for Ukraine down below in the description. How to stay safe, logistics, and also for Lviv, Chernovtsi, Uzhhorod, Kiev and Odesa I have my hospitality guide, not for the vineyards, although there are a few in Ukraine, and how to stay safe as possible. That's good stuff down below. Consulting, like my client who had for the consulting, he was debating between Warsaw and Riga. He's now going to go to Riga after the call, so it saved him probably a few weeks in Warsaw to realize that Riga was going to be a better spot. He would have wasted a lot more money than the cost of the call, in my opinion. Now he's going to kick off these 3 months in Riga. Jump on a consulting call if you want quick answers. You don't want to have to read a lot of stuff or watch tens of hours of my content, or even ChatGPT is not going to answer the question for you. My expertise will. And if you are up for the in-person immersion, which is known as the New Europe Experience now, formerly the Czar Experience, application form down below because it is by application only. You will have an unforgettable week with me. We will party at the hotspots with the beautiful women of this region in the city we are. You will come out with my local crew, so you'll already have a social circle. We will work on you networking with the high-level local guys who are the kind of guys you want to meet and hang out, because it's not all just about dating beautiful women here. Of course, you'll have me in real time there with you to point out your blind spots with respect to dating and socializing, things no one may ever tell you that you're doing wrong. I'll be able to spot that with my expertise and correct it in real time. Invaluable. On top of it, if you want, we can get some content, at least definitely figure out a strategy for your Instagram. Some clients come, they have amazing Instagrams, others awful, and it's a big problem. And we can create some of the content. That's the only thing I'll take from the conversation with Drifter Dan that I could have improved on at that point. But he paid, again, his friend $66,000 to have a mediocre Instagram, in my opinion, having tested with Ukrainian models. And yeah, we can create all that. Also the cultural integration, coaching, and you get my encyclopedic knowledge of over 10 years in this region. Again, you can read a lot of stuff on ChatGPT. It is a good resource. I use it for some things. But it doesn't replace a lot of it. It's not going to tell you where the best places are to go, because I check in every city. It's terrible. It'll waste of time. You should not use ChatGPT if you want to know where to go out in a city as a single guy, anywhere in this region. Because I put in all the cities. It hardly ever has any of the best places. Sometimes they're there, but it's like in a list of 15 places and there's maybe 2. So what, you're going to go to, like, you're not going to know which ones. You can go to all 15, but 13 of them are going to suck. It'd almost be better to go randomly. So yeah, that's why I have the guides. If you're interested in cities like Riga, I also have been drafting a guide. It's not ready yet, but you can write me, Conor@conorklein.com. It's 35 euros, and I will send you the draft. Same for Warsaw, and same for Kazakhstan. I didn't make one for Estonia. No one was interested, apparently. So I have all the information myself in notes about where to go out in. But okay, that will be for your eyes only, for Irish boys only, apparently. And yeah, I think that's everything. Sorry kids, Belgrade reigns supreme. Belgrade I've been to. I think price point is low, so I guess things are good value for money, and it seems like a lot of cool shit is going on at times there. I see on Instagram some interesting stuff. However, the dating scene, even though women are attractive there, I had a good time in Novi Sad. I even stayed for next week. It's many years ago at this point, and I met and had short-term flings with many a beautiful Serb and Croat and even Bosniak. I think I have been with a Bosniak, yeah. But all the feedback from Belgrade, and it was my experience, Belgrade was not great on the dating scene, but from friends, clients, all went there. woefully underwhelmed. They got nowhere. A lot of these guys, very successful in Ukraine, very successful in this region, didn't get anywhere in Serbia. So it doesn't seem like, again, none of them spoke Serbian, so maybe that's part of the reason. Maybe it's the same thing, Conor's Law. But in general, I'm just not as enthusiastic. The political direction of the country is unclear. The president was here, the Serbian president, his name is pronounced Vučić, in Odesa, so he did show some support by coming, but at the same time he's also partly in Russia's camp, and that's also problematic for the future of Serbia. So because are they on the path to EU accession? They're a kind of country, but it's not going anywhere, and they're going to get overtaken by Moldova. Montenegro will become probably the next country to join the European Union, probably 2028, and Moldova is aiming for 2030. And Ukraine, well, that's got a lot of complications because of the invasion and stuff, but Ukraine may join the European Union before Serbia. And that's not good if you're planning to spend a lot of time in Serbia, because it's going to kind of suck for the country, the political direction, and things could go very bad. There could be a new conflict with Kosovo, and yeah, not that we didn't have geopolitical risk here as well, but just outlining that, I'm just not as enthusiastic. I think it's good. I'm not going to hate on it at all as a place, but I just enjoyed it here more. And I say that with the disclaimer that I had a great time in Novi Sad. Really great memories of going there. It was very different to Belgrade though, and it was more ethnically mixed part of Serbia. And maybe that may be a bit more tolerant, a bit more open, I don't know. But I was also hanging out in the college scene there at the time, so yeah, I had a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie about that or say anything bad about it. So that's what I'd say. For me, this is a more interesting region. On that note, I'm gonna say Usaro Buna, wish you have a pleasant evening. I hope you get to come and enjoy magical Moldova. Either you do it yourself with or without my guide, with or without my consulting, with or without being the in-person immersion. Will save you so much time and emotions and money. Or you won't do it and you do it yourself and you come and enjoy the wonders of magical Moldova this summer in 2025. I have my summer vlogs. I should have said that. If I haven't put them down in the description, I'm going to add them after this tonight. For 2022, 2023, 2024, I had vlogs from here. I started filming, obviously, 2025. Going to be another amazing summer. The weather is great at the moment, so I really encourage you to come and enjoy Moldova. Have a great glass of Moldovan wine, eat the great food, socialize with the very friendly local people. It's not dangerous here at all, not aggressive in my experience. And they're beautifying, I should have said, the city center all the time. It gets nicer, better restaurants, cafes, everything. And the nightlife improves little by little every year. So have a great morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. Usaro Buna, Zua Buna, and do we say O dimineața plăcută? Maybe in Romanian. And I will see you on the next live stream, or even if I get Conor's Law video out during the week, you will see me there. So ciao ciao, until next one.